following program is intended for mature audiences.
What do you say we have a rock and roll party?
You're listening to Basically a Sports Show.
Follow us on Twitter at Basically Sports.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes.
And download every episode and more at basicallyasportsshow.com.
Now here's your hosts, Zach,
Greg, Mike.
And you're listening to Basically a Sports Show.
They're playing it at Raymond James Stadium.
Oh, I thought you meant there. Okay, I thought you meant there was actually like some sort of a tour boat or something that you got to watch the game on.
No.
That would be cool, right?
Yo, yeah, stuck on a boat with a bunch of drunk college football fans. Just sign me up.
What a night, right?
Speaking of which, I now understand why people bitch about the Super Bowl being put in their cities.
I can imagine.
If it's anything like this, because I'm grown to hate both fan bases of Alabama and Clemson for the last couple of days.
It's probably 10 times worse for a Super Bowl because they don't do maybe they do, but they don't talk it up. Championship week or whatever, you got Super Bowl, the 2 weeks in between, and the city's got all this stuff going on. Did they do all that?
No, they did that. They did that here. Not only that, but I've recently moved into my own place.
Right.
And my new place is right in the epicenter of all the fan fest crap.
Oh boy.
So, which, by the way, I can get into free as a teacher.
Cool.
But I haven't because, they've closed half of the roads in this part of town, and so getting anywhere, just trying to go somewhere that's a 2-minute drive is now a half an hour ordeal.
Well, it's not easy to get around in Tampa under the best of circumstances.
And now now you add in arbitrary road closures, and there are some roads that are open at some parts of the day, but they close them down for the high traffic, not the high traffic hours for the fan fest. So
it'll all be over. It'll all be over tonight.
Yeah. And just again, I can't reiterate how much I just hate Clemson and Alabama fans right now, just because, it seems over the past week or so, any time I've had to deal with an asshole on the road, there's inevitably a Crimson Tide or a Clemson Tigers sticker on the back of their car.
Well, another reason for me to be happy Ohio State didn't make the final. You think those guys are bad? I'm sure Alabama travels really well, and Clemson does pretty good. I don't think you have ever seen anything like Ohio State when they go on the road.
Given all the Midwesterners that are actually in Tampa,
right?
I would imagine that if Ohio State had made it, it would just be bonkers.
And I will say this because I really believe it's true. I think Ohio State travels better than any school in college football. Period. And I'll put that up against anybody: Notre Dame, Alabama, you name it. I think the Buckeye fans, because they're everywhere. First off, but. I think, though, that it would still be worse for a Super Bowl week just because the college football championship is basically a national thing. The Super Bowl's worldwide, and they're going to drag in all sorts of more stuff for the NFL. So imagine if you had the Super Bowl on top of all this. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
that just brought the show to a screeching halt.
No, I'm finishing up a thing for work real quick.
I've been I haven't even left the house today because I could just imagine how insane it would be.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's been I honestly can't wait for it to just be over. And then I can, just go about my routine in peace.
I imagine that's how the people in Daytona feel when Bike Week's going on. I mean, I know it is because I was there for it, and they hated it, and I loved it because I'm a biker. Mm-hmm. But there was, and you got to think too that Bike Week is 2 weeks almost of Harleys everywhere, and Harleys aren't known for being subtle machines. They're not quiet, and they're not. Yeah, and I loved it. I was in heaven. I don't know if I could put up with it again this year, but last year it was a lot of fun.
So what's a bigger deal for biker culture, Daytona or Sturgis?
Oh, I would imagine Sturgis. Sturgis is the holy grail. But you got to think about it, though. At least this is the way I look at it. Sturgis is a town of, I think, maybe 5,000 people. Mm-hmm. And you get 500,000, 750,000 people that converge at this small, tiny little town. How much fun could that be? Because there's people and there's nowhere near enough of anything to meet the demand. Whereas at least in Daytona, it's big. There's, Bike Week takes up not just Daytona, but it goes into Ormond Beach. It goes all the way down as far south as like Titusville and down through there, west into Orlando. I mean, it's a big spread out thing. Where Sturgis is this tiny little town that everybody piles into for a week. I don't know. I mostly
just know Sturgis because back in the day, WCW had an annual pay-per-view, and it was live from the bike rally. So they'd set up a wrestling ring in the middle of this crowd of bikers, and it was actually really cool to watch on TV.
I bet.
Of course, the downside is that they didn't make any money on a live gate because there was no live gate. It was just sort of there, and anyone who was at the rally who wanted to watch it could watch it. But it was an interesting thing to watch, definitely.
Well, yeah, it's. I would like to go to Sturgis just once, but I don't think it would be something I would do every year. I've heard a lot of stories about it, and some people are like, it's great. Others are like, it was a complete waste of time. So you really don't know until you experience it. But Daytona Bike Week was spread out enough to where you could get around easily, and everything flowed pretty good. I don't think you're going to see that in Sturgis, where it's basically a 2-stoplight town that 500,000 people show up at. I don't know.
Makes you wonder, how did such a small town get that reputation of being this is where all the bikers go?
Well, you're familiar with Burning Man, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of the same deal, I believe, where it started out as a small thing, and then as the years went by, it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and here we are. That's my understanding of it anyway. I don't know a lot about Sturgis. I think it would be cool to ride up there because there's so much cool stuff to see. You could ride out to Mount Rushmore, and you just got a lot of cool roads that...
Oh, speaking of the Sturgis ride thing, going back to the WCW Road Wild pay-per-view that they used to have, there's a story, and this is years back, but figure, why the hell not reminisce about old wrestling?
We're conversationeering.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
To 1 year, it was either 98 or 99, but to promote the fact that they were having this annual pay-per-view at this huge bike rally, they actually had a lot of their big stars make a show of, we're getting to Sturgis by riding, our motorcycles there. And
okay.
it was like Goldberg and Lex Luger, and I think Hogan did it. And the whole thing was, and they didn't just do it for the cameras. These guys actually legitimately rode their bikes, except it turned out that half of the WCW roster got lost on their way. And the morning of the show, they're like, "Where is everyone?" And nobody could. And keep in mind, this is in the days before you could just text someone.
Right.
And cell phone technology wasn't where it's at today, so it was. Yeah, it's like. Has anyone seen Goldberg and Lex Luger?
Kind of important that they be here today. We've got this little thing going on.
There's a very real chance they got lost and starved to death in the Dakota wilderness.
Yeah, I would think too. You take a wrong turn up there and go 10 miles out of your way, and I don't even know where you are. Because first off, I don't believe anybody actually lives in North Dakota. So, other than Sturgis, and I'm not even sure if it's in North or South Dakota, to be honest with you, but it's in one of the two.
I want to say
I believe it's south.
Yeah,
okay.
I want to say it's south, but honestly, when you're talking about North and South Dakota, does it even matter?
Right, exactly. So no one lives there. So you can't get lost and go to the next town because there is no next town. There's Sturgis and a bunch of wilderness. What do you do? I don't know. Anyway. Are you done with your thing, Zach?
Yeah, I'm sending it off right now.
Our intrepid reporter, Zach, always on the job.
Incidentally, Dakota is only 2 states due to a late 19th century ploy to get the Republicans 2 extra senators.
Right. Yeah.
So
the old Wild West.
We've got 2 states where we probably don't even need one at this point.
I
kid
feel...
for our North Dakota and South Dakota listenership, which again I don't believe you're there, but just in case you are, I'm just kidding.
I kind of feel about like the Dakotas. I kind of guess the way that Zach you described Nevada.
Yeah,
like just make it like just have it be unincorporated government land for nuclear tests and alien experiments.
There you go.
Like, is there enough civilization in those two blocks of land to really constitute a state?
I will take that back. North and South Dakota serve one purpose. That's where they shipped all of my people when they couldn't find anywhere else to put them. That's what it's there for.
I thought that was Oklahoma.
That too. Well, for Cherokee in particular, yes, but I'm talking like in general. The indigenous peoples, North and South Dakota. Isn't that's where the whole the water thing was taking place too, right? Was in North and South Dakota? Yeah.
Yeah, it was in North Dakota.
Yeah. But anyway, so national championship tonight, which brings up something I wanted to talk about. If you guys are interested. Bill Simmons, our friend, he called Nick Saban a coward. Did you guys read about this or hear about it?
Yeah, I heard this conversation.
I did too. So do you think, okay, first off, a lot of people are like, was he joking or was he serious? I don't know. I think he was serious.
Well, and for those that don't know what he's talking about, what he meant was Saban came into the NFL for one season.
Yeah, set it up.
Didn't get Drew Brees, like in the same way that, at Alabama you can get whatever guy you want. He didn't get the guy he wanted, had a mediocre season, and said, you know what? NFL football is not for me. I'm going to go back to college where I can rule the world week to week. And so Simmons thought that, all the best coaches are coaching the NFL. So if you're really the best coach of all time, Nick Saban, you should come back to the NFL instead of being a coward and hitting all these games in college.
I will say I do think he was serious. I would also say I don't think he's exactly right because maybe I'm remembering
NFL coaches.
Yeah. Also, like I'm sure if you went to at least half of the NFL teams and said you can have Nick Saban as your coach next season, no questions asked, at least half of them would jump at the chance. But maybe I'm remembering things wrong, but while that Dolphins season wasn't the best, I do seem to remember the Saban season was like trending in the right direction. Like he definitely improved things, and like things seemed to be heading in the right direction.
I don't remember. Were they a 500 team that year?
I'm pulling it up.
And this is something I'll bring up in Nick Saban's defense too. He was the defensive coordinator for the Browns in one of the years the years that Belichick coached the Browns. And I've said it before on the show, but he took a team that had no business going 11-5 and made them 11-5. And Belichick was the head coach, but he took a defense that was basically a sieve and improved it to the point where they were really good. So I think the guy can coach at the NFL level. Go ahead, Zach.
Nick Saban, his first season, he actually had 2 seasons there.
Yeah, I thought it was more than just one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 2 seasons. His first season. They won their opening game 34-10 over the Broncos. This was 2005, so I don't know who was there at that point.
That was like the Jake Plummer years, wasn't it? Or Kyle Orton, maybe?
So they won their first game, lost 7 of their next 9 to fall to 3-7.
Ooh.
And then they won the final 6 games of the season, including a win over the Patriots in the final game of the season in Foxborough for a 9-7 final.
Okay. And what did he do his second season?
His second season... let's see. They finished 6-10. They started the season 1-6. Then they won 4 straight. Got back in the playoff hunt at 5-6. Had a big loss to Jacksonville the next week. Then they beat the Patriots 21-0 the week after that. And then this was when they had Joey Harrington as their quarterback.
The Dolphins did.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that.
I mean, I remember him playing for the Dolphins, but I didn't think he was there part of the Saban years. Okay.
Right. But this was so basically in between years, the first year and the second year, that's when he tried to get Drew Brees. Didn't get him. And then so they ended up having Dante Culpepper, who wasn't great, Joey Harrington, who of course wasn't great, and late in the season, Joey Harrington was benched in favor of third-string quarterback Cleo Lemon.
Oh, God, yeah, Cleo Lemon. I think he might have been – didn't he start for the Browns? Isn't he one of the 47 guys that played for the Browns, or am I thinking of somebody else?
Possible. This was also the years when they had Ronnie Brown.
Yeah.
Pretty good those first couple of years for him.
Yeah,
I just remember that when he left, thinking – for some reason, I remember at the time thinking, oh, that sucks for the Dolphins. I thought he had them heading in the right direction.
Well, but the bigger question here is, okay, Simmons says that all the best coaches are in the NFL. I don't think that Saban's a coward, but as fans, do we look at a guy like Saban and go, well, he never succeeded at the NFL, so he's not as great a coach as he could have been? I don't look at it that way at all.
Another thing I was going to say is I don't think I would call him a coward for leaving the NFL to go to Alabama, because didn't Alabama offer him a ridiculous amount of money, right, something like $40 million to become their head coach? So whether or not going from the NFL to college, is a step down as a coach, and I don't believe it necessarily is, but even if you did believe that's one thing. But on the other hand, at the end of the day, you talk about passion this, passion that, all you want. It's still a job. It's still a means to support yourself. And when anyone is willing to pay you $40 million to coach football, I don't care if it's an NFL team or a NCAA program, if you're getting that kind of offer, you kind of owe it to yourself to take it, don't you?
Yeah. For Nick Saban, okay, so a couple things to take the Alabama job. One, you're in control of everything.
Top to bottom. Yep.
Yes. In the NFL, it's based on a lot of different factors. So most people point to the Drew Brees thing as one driving force, and that may be the choice. Maybe what am I trying to say? That may be the reason. That may be what it actually was.
But okay,
it's like.
But what I want to point out really quick before I forget, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'll forget this if I don't say it right now. With Brees, a lot of people want to say he didn't get what he wanted, so he stomped his feet and he went back to college football. I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I think he realized when he didn't get Brees that this isn't like college football, and I don't want to deal with this nonsense of having to outbid, outspend, worry about salary cap, all that other stuff. I think was a bigger part of it, is what I wanted to say.
Right, and I think that's more the case too. Not necessarily that he didn't get Drew Brees, but just that process.
Yeah.
Whereas when you go to college, and if you are at a program like Alabama, and to be fair, I mean, even when he first got to Alabama, it's still competing with everybody else. And now that Alabama has become Ala-friggin-Bama, all you have to do is say, "Hey, I'm Nick Saban. Want to play?" Yes, and they have first round draft picks of their backup positions at Alabama. They're deep. Alabama now is completely different than even when Nick Saban took over in 2007.
Well, yeah, and I think you've got to give him some credit for making them into Alabama that we know today. To me, he is without question the greatest college football coach of all time, and he's going to go out and win another championship tonight and cement that legacy.
Even more than Bear Bryant?
I think so, yeah. A different game with Bear Bryant. Completely different game, different animal. And, the recruiting was, Bryant won some of those championships with no black players. So the competition, everything's, okay, maybe greatest ever. This is something that I always go back to. You got to kind of judge things by the era, because Bryant's game and Saban's game, completely different from each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think things are harder now.
Yeah, but then again, I also go by the old thing that John Madden said about NFL quarterbacks. At some point, you've just got to step up and go, this guy's the greatest. And I think Saban's the greatest. Better than Bear Bryant, better than Woody Hayes, Bo Schembechler, the guy from Penn State, whoever you want to throw in there.
And, you guys will hear this after the game, so you'll already know who won. But if Saban does win tonight, he will be the winningest college football coach in terms of national championships.
Well, what would this make for him? How many would this be?
5, I believe.
Yeah, and he's going to win. We talk about it on the football show all the time. They're the Patriots of college football. What do you say at this point? They're going to keep on winning, and I don't know. I just thought it was a kind of a weird thing to say, and I'm not one that looks down my nose and says, well, you didn't do it at the NFL level, so you must not be as great at it. And I just wondered if you guys felt that was a legitimate criticism of Nick Saban or anybody else for that matter.
As Zach said, there are a lot of crappy football coaches at the NFL level.
Yeah.
It's actually going to be Saban's 6?
I thought it was 7 for some reason.
It's going to be 6.
6.
Yeah,
did he won a few with LSU too?
He's won 5 total, 4 at Alabama, and this would be his 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah, he won 1 at LSU. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to being able to control things top to bottom, being able to be paid as much as he's paid, there's, as much as the NFL is the top level of competition in the sport, being in Alabama and playing in the SEC is pretty damn close to being in the NFL for all intents and purposes.
Not only that, but let's look at it like this. Let's say that you're an NFL head coach. Let's say that all 3 of us are, and there are jobs available out there. And you look at it, okay, one of those jobs is the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I'm sure any one of us could actually coach the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Well, we couldn't do any worse, I wouldn't imagine. But let's say it's the Jaguars, the Browns, Bama, and I don't know, we'll throw in like USC. Okay, so you've got 2 really kind of bottom of the rung NFL teams and 2 premier college gigs. To me, I'm looking at it and going, I'm going to go to Bama or I'm going to go to SC, because who wants to coach the Jaguars and maybe be there for 2 years if you're lucky, 3, whatever. And there's just too many variables. I just thought it was a bad criticism because, I heard this on Dan Patrick today and I thought it was a great point. No one says John Wooden wasn't a great coach because he never coached in the NBA. From UCLA. I mean, maybe I'm going back too far for you guys with that one, but
I would definitely, at the very least, consider like the Bama and USC jobs if I were a coach in that situation. Like, I wouldn't write them off saying, "Oh, it's college, it's beneath me," or anything like that.
Right, but let's say like if you're going to go see the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, they hired a coach today, which is
Mike Marone. Are you freaking kidding me?
Doug Marone, yeah.
Or Doug Marone. That's how. Yeah, I don't even know his freaking name. That's how bad a hire it was.
But okay, so
better or worse than Mike Pettin?
I'm going to say about equal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe a little better because Marone had some success at Syracuse in college, but not. Yeah.
Anyway,
neither one's getting the fans all excited. I can promise you that.
Right, but say like you have on the table, you have Jacksonville on one hand, and then you have USC or let's just use this upcoming season for example. Let's say Texas, because Texas was the big job that was going to be open. I mean, it got filled, but you have Jacksonville Jaguars or Texas, and at Texas you can control the whole damn thing and get paid, say, $9 million a year.
Yeah.
Whereas at Jacksonville, you're not going to control the whole thing. It's going to be starting from the ground up. And you can only make $4 million a year.
Well, not only that, and let's throw a couple other things in there too. At Jacksonville, you're relying on the draft, which you get 7 picks for a season. And if you're lucky, yeah. If you miss on 5 of those, you miss on 2 of them, your draft's probably no good. At least with college, you can recruit up to, I don't know how many scholarships they have a year to work with, but the thing is, if you blow it on one recruit, you've got 5 others that you can fix that with. You can't do that in the NFL. And it's just, I don't know.
And it's not like there's different pressures. Like, if you don't succeed in 3 years with Jacksonville, you're probably fired. And if you don't succeed in 3 years at Texas, probably fired. Maybe even less at Texas.
Not only that, but the pressure is going to be 10 times worse at Texas than it would ever be at Jacksonville.
Right. And for a lot of these guys, we've talked about it before, these coaches of any level, they're all kind of egomaniacs at a certain point, right? Mm-hmm. And if you go to Alabama or you go to Texas versus going to Jacksonville or Buffalo, let's say, would you rather be the most powerful man in Buffalo or the most powerful man in the entire state of Texas?
Right.
Plus, if you go to Texas, I mean, you're probably making more than the dean of the actual school.
Oh, I guarantee it. 10 times as much.
Yeah, the football coaches are always the highest paid public employees, which is always hilarious to look at when the states have to publish these things.
Yeah.
And it's like, Alabama, you have Nick Saban making $12 million a year or whatever, and then the governor is like the 5th highest paid person.
I promise you, Mike, that Urban Meyer makes more than the entire economics faculty does at Ohio State.
It isn't that part of a wider problem. I won't get
definitely.
into that, but
yeah, it's definitely part of a bigger problem.
It's a very big problem.
Yeah.
But, things are how they are, unfortunately.
It just depends on how you look at it. I mean, if you look at it from a straight, laissez-faire economic standpoint, they're getting paid what the market will bear. But if you're looking at it from an ethical standpoint, you're going, yeah, something not quite right about this. I don't know.
But yeah, I don't hold anything against Nick Saban. I'll reiterate what I thought at the time. I think it's a shame for the Dolphins because I think he probably has probably been the best coach that team has had in a long time, honestly.
Well, let's think about this for a second. We've talked about this a bunch of times, too. College coaches, as a rule, don't usually do too well at the NFL level. But you've got a lot of guys. I'm trying to think of like coaches that popped up, won a Super Bowl, and faded into obscurity. And I'm sure there have got to be a few in the 50 Super Bowls we've had so far.
Well, the thing with that is, like, I don't know, like, yeah, college coaches haven't had the best track record in the NFL, but at the same time, like, the big example that everyone throws out is Steve Spurrier. But then again, Steve Spurrier got handcuffed by having to work for Dan Snyder. So was that really a fair test of his abilities?
Yeah, and he didn't well, I commend him for this, and I think that it was great that he did this, but he worked from 8 to 4. And he wasn't a guy that spent 20 hours a day there. It was 8 to 4, and that was it. He was done. And honestly, I don't think Spurrier even really cared that much. I don't know what his reasoning was for taking that job, but I never got the impression that he really gave a shit one way or the other if he succeeded in the NFL. It just seemed like it didn't matter to him. But that's the kind of guy he is. So I don't know. It's
if I were an NFL coach, I'd work 8 to 4 and fuck it. You know?
Yeah, that's the thing, though. I don't think, and we've been over this too, but is it necessary to work that many hours? Is it because way back when one guy started working an extra hour more than everybody else, and before you know it, it steamrolled until now here we are, where they sleep 2 hours a week?
Well, here's the other, but when it comes to that sort of thing too, when you have the guys that are true workaholics are probably better college coaches, because you have to do that year round, and when you include the recruiting part.
Yeah.
In the NFL, you do get some time off at some point. But in college, when would you take time off?
I don't know.
You're constantly recruiting. Right. You've got spring ball, summer camps going on. Then you got, I guess you would do it in the middle of the summer if you had any time.
Well, you've got those like those camps that they go to and stuff. The quarterback camps and the little like the side things that like Nike does or that the shoe companies do and all that. There's a lot to it.
Trent Dilfer's quarterback camp.
Yeah.
So you laugh.
Surprised we haven't seen more successful quarterbacks come out of that. I don't know what the problem is.
Trent Dilfer's camp, the Elite 11, is like the top quarterback thing in the country.
Wait, he actually has one?
Yes.
Oh, I thought Mike was joking when he said that.
No, I'm being serious.
Trent Dilfer is the head of this Elite 11 quarterback.
Good for him.
And like the top quarterbacks that go to all the different colleges, if you don't go through the Elite 11 camp, you might as well not even bother getting recruited.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's the biggest deal.
Well, just because he wasn't good.
And I think it's very unfair that the gatekeeper to quarterback success turns out to be Trent Dilfer. Because come on.
Well, but a lot of guys are he's got a Super Bowl ring. You got to give him that.
Yeah,
I'm just saying he has one. I'm not saying he had anything to do with it. But a lot of guys,
could have gotten a Super Bowl ring quarterbacking that team, which existed solely off of the defense.
Yeah, I know. Remember, they didn't score a touchdown for like 5 games or something like that.
They didn't score an offensive touchdown for 5 games. Like, come on. He was an integral part of that. Okay.
But no, what I'm saying is that he was not a great quarterback, but we see it a lot in every sport where a guy that's not such a great player turns out to be a pretty good coach or personnel evaluator, or that type of thing.
He wasn't a great NFL quarterback, but he was fine in college, right?
Yeah, he was. Fresno State, right?
I thought Dilfer went to BYU. Or am I wrong?
Fresno State. Yeah, he was part of those.
No. BYU is his broadcast partner, Steve Young.
Oh, right. Who is also, I think, part of the Elite 11 in some way.
Oh.
At least Steve Young, though, I can get.
Yeah, he was good, man.
But then again, any guy that's an okay college quarterback is probably the best high school quarterback in his county or whatever, or his half of the state at the very least.
I'm just thinking about that. Can you imagine there was a time when the San Francisco 49ers, their starting quarterback was Joe Montana and their backup was Steve freaking Young?
Well,
that's ridiculous, huh?
Okay, Green Bay Packer fan, tell me about how that's ridiculous.
Well, no, but here's the thing, though. But Montana wasn't on his way out when Young was his backup. Young picked up 3 Super Bowl rings with that team. That's what I mean. That's This wasn't like a Favre-Rodgers situation. Rodgers was there under Favre for, a year or two, maybe? Young was there for, I think, 5 or 6 years.
Although, at the risk of dredging this discussion back up, I don't think Brett Favre considered himself on the way out either.
Well, I still, when I see like a joke post from somebody or a tweet, so-and-so's considering Favre, I don't automatically write it off and go, nope, that's not possible. That's how much he botched the end of his career. Where he's, my age, and I still look at it and go, yeah, he could still come back. I don't want him to.
I still foresee like a terrible future where both Dak Prescott and Tony Romo get like severely injured, and Jerry Jones just brings in Brett Favre.
I wouldn't write that off 100%. I'd write it off 98%, but I'm leaving that 2% there.
And ESPN just melts down with orgasmic joy.
Yeah, it kind of bums me out. Brett was one of my favorite players, and man, he just got everybody to hate him so much at the end there. I got terrible luck. I was thinking about this when I made the mistake of stepping into the NFL playoffs thread on the board yesterday. Oh, the people hate Aaron Rodgers. I had no idea. They really don't like him.
The NFC North hates Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. Andy hates Aaron.
Oh,
Rodgers.
Andy's kind of like the East German judge who just throw his score out immediately.
Oh, Andy.
But
I enjoy Andy's annual rants of I wish nothing but the very worst for Aaron Rodgers. It's so unapologetic. I can't help but love it.
Yeah, I know. I get a kick out of it too, but I just was surprised. And then it hit me. It's like, man, I'm an Ohio State fan. I'm a Packers fan. People must hate my guts. I didn't mean it to be this way.
The only thing that could make it worse is if you were a Patriots fan.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I was just surprised. I always thought Rodgers, I got it with Favre because he just was such an ass towards the end of his career. But with Rodgers, he does a lot of those commercials. But so did Peyton Manning, and people didn't hate him quite as much.
I don't hate Aaron Rodgers. In fact, as someone who got really tired of the Brett Favre show near the end, I fully admit I was one of the people who full-on hated Brett Favre near the end of his career. I've always pulled for Aaron Rodgers. I'm pulling for him to now get another Super Bowl just so he surpasses Favre in Packers lore. And then when Packers fans recount the greatest quarterbacks, it's Aaron Rodgers, then Bart Starr, and then Brett Favre.
I think Rodgers has already overtaken Favre as their greatest quarterback, don't you guys?
I don't know. Favre had a certain mystique to him that
he had a mystique manufactured for him by John Madden.
Yeah, that was a big part of it. But I think that if I were picking a team, okay, you're going to take peak Brett Favre, peak Aaron Rodgers. I'm taking Rodgers every time, and that's not a knock on Favre. But I think Rodgers is just amazing.
Favre is unreliable in certain ways where he was, he was a gunslinger.
He's just having fun out there.
Right,
and it's all fun games until he throws away your team's chances at the Super Bowl and the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right. That would be the thing that would hold me back on Favre is that, he's when he's great, but when he's great, he can also throw some bad picks.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But anyway, it was glorious watching my Packers just annihilate the Giants yesterday. That was a lot of fun.
Well, thanks for that, because I really didn't want another Giants come out of nowhere to win the Super Bowl year. So
I sold my stock on them a couple weeks ago on the football show, so I'm looking pretty good right about now.
Yeah, well.
But early on in that game, though, I was like, man, oh man, the Giants, they've got us again. Here we go, and wow, it just.
The difference in that game was that the Giants dropped 3 touchdown passes in the first quarter. And then the Packers just started clicking late in the game, and that was it.
Well, speaking of that, since we're talking about the Giants, this is another thing I wanted to bring up. This whole stupid thing with the boat.
Ugh.
Boat? I've missed this.
Oh, you didn't hear this? So last Monday, because they all get a day off after the last game of the season, and they don't have to go back to practice until Wednesday or whatever. So Odell Beckham Jr. and the rest of the wide receiving core went down to Miami to have a party, and they took a picture on a boat and whatever. And so were their heads in the game? Were they distracted?
This is
taking this seriously?
This is the dumbest shit.
Because something they did a week ago was still having some sort of effect on them yesterday.
If you are a playoff caliber football player in the NFL, one trip to Miami on a boat isn't going to completely throw your game off.
Well, it's like Zach pointed out.
Miami, you go to Miami and it's warm, and you're going to be playing in Green Bay. You should be vacationing in the sun.
So what, they have to do they have to vacation in Canada now?
They have to go to North Dakota.
Lake Taves, Manitoba.
But like you pointed out, Zach, he dropped passes. Beckham dropped some passes. The receivers dropped some passes.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to blame it on the boat trip. No, the reason they did that's because it was like 2 degrees in Green Bay. And whether you prepare for it or not, the Packers receivers are more accustomed to playing in that weather than the Giants receivers were. That's all it was. It had nothing to do with the boat trip. They didn't have a soul. I mean, I don't know if I would have taken the pictures and done all that, just because it's a distraction for your team, but that's the only reason I wouldn't have done it.
This is okay. When Zach first brought up a boat, I was hoping for another Minnesota Vikings sex boat scandal.
Oh, it probably was something along those lines. We just haven't heard all of it yet.
And now I find out it's just people doing the same dumb crap they do in sports media. Were their heads in the game? You're a playoff caliber player in the NFL. A trip on a boat in Miami,
right?
Is going to affect you one way or the other. And again, as far as the weather goes, someone who grew up in Canada, like you can live your entire life used to winter weather. It's still going to be hard as balls to catch a football when it's thrown to you.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if you prep your cold's cold, man. There's no way that you can practice getting used to that. It just doesn't work that way.
No, and they had a bad game, and the Packers, like Zach said, the Packers figured out the defense in the second half, and that was that. I had nothing to do with the stupid boat trip, but
No, of course it has nothing to do with the boat trip, but something that they need to, or I guess Odell Beckham Jr. in particular needs to learn, especially playing in New York. You can't do anything that is going to open you up to later criticism.
Right.
If you win, great, yeah, fun boat trip, everybody had a good time. But if you lose, you should know that that's the first thing people are going to point to.
Well, the headline on one of the New York tabloids was "Abandoned Ship" with a picture, I think, of Beckham dropping a pass.
Another one was "Shipwrecked."
Yeah. But you're right.
Okay.
That's why you don't do it, because it's.
I can't be too hard. I can't be too hard on him for that, because I do enjoy a good pun. So.
Well, God, the newspaper today, they were doing they had a story from the AP about the Raiders and their season, with losing Derek Carr, all the injuries. So the headline was, with car parked, Raiders stall.
Oh.
You get to be an editor. You're going to have to start writing those things, man.
Not NHL.com quality level puns, but
I got to admit, NHL.com quality has slipped in recent years. The puns are not where they should be on NHL.com.
But yeah, I just think the only thing that they did wrong was that they drew attention to it, because you knew the minute that the media found out about this boat party, if they lost, that was going to be what caused it. That was going to be the main reason for it, and people were going to way overreact to it.
I'm going to blame Eli Manning. He probably threw the balls too hard in that cold weather. I mean, come on, Eli, get your head in the game.
I said a lot of things that I'm not proud of about Eli Manning yesterday. I'll just say that.
I'm proud of all the terrible things I say about Eli Manning.
Yeah, but I was getting into some territory where it wasn't just. I mean, I shouldn't say. There were just things that I probably shouldn't have used to make fun of him, like the line, like, it's really nice that they let slow people play in the NFL. Probably a step too far.
Well.
Oh, God.
Along those lines, it's nice to see that the mentally challenged kid gets a chance too. Stuff like that. It wasn't like Eli sucks stuff. It was stuff where I thought, I'm really in an evil place here. Our next point of contention here, another problem with the NHL. No alternate jerseys next year when Adidas takes over as the uniform supplier.
Right. The last time this happened was when Reebok took over and they switched everything to the Edge system.
Which has to be spelled in all capital letters, by the way.
Right. Edge.
You're not serious. Really?
It was a thing at the time, yeah.
All right, I'm going to stop just for a second here before we get deep into this. What is it that's so difficult about making an extra jersey?
It's something about when they did it with Reebok, it was because they were overhauling the entire uniform system for hockey.
Right.
It was supposed to be streamlined and new fabrics, and we all thought that they were going to have to tuck their jerseys into their pants. All this sort of crazy stuff. And some of that didn't turn out to be true, but most people think it was just because everybody was gonna have to buy new jerseys anyway. So let them buy these jerseys now, and then you wait to reintroduce alternates the next year, and then you do it all over again. So then people can buy more. Because
the reasoning that it's easier made no sense to me. If you got the template of the design, you're ready to go. What's so difficult about adding, say, the Jackets Cannon jerseys? What's so hard about that?
They needed to. Well, when they were switching templates, it was to make sure the design worked on the template, because they didn't know some of these were going to work or whatever.
Right, but wouldn't this be something that you would know ahead of time?
The idea that I always heard was kind of going along with what Zach said, that like this was a complete overhaul of what NHL uniforms were supposed to be, and like in theory at least a lot of teams were going to be debuting with new looks, and so the idea was if this is going to be a team's new identity, then give them a season to give fans a season to get used to the primary identity before you start introducing alternates.
Yeah,
but here's the thing. I get where is it going to be? Is it going to be like the Edge deal where we're going to get a completely different cut of uniform, or is it just basically a different supplier?
We don't know.
It's not even a different supplier because Adidas owns Reebok.
Well, yeah, okay, that too, but that's what I mean. Are we doing it? And God, I hope not. That they're not going to change everything up again. I don't know. It just makes no sense to me. I mean, I guess I get it from a marketing standpoint that you don't want fans to go out and have to buy, say, 3 jerseys as opposed to 2. I don't know. I just find it odd. It just strikes me as odd, and I guess I kind of got it with the Edge thing, but I don't get it there either. Because basically, once you've got the template laid out, all you need is the color of the material and the logos and so on of the damn things, and you're good to go.
Well, and that's what this doesn't make too much sense, because we don't, as far as all of us that know or that are in the know for this stuff, we don't anticipate anything truly drastic happening to the jerseys in terms of, I mean, I've seen Adidas' template, and it's not like it's that different in total.
It's going to be the World Cup of Hockey template, right?
Right. I mean, the one thing that we do know, or at least that we hope, is that the 3 stripes aren't going to appear on this stuff, except for maybe where like the Adidas logo would go.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they're going to be there on the practice jerseys. But practice jerseys are practice jerseys. Who the hell cares?
My question is this. Okay, you got a new supplier, sort of, with Adidas, I guess, basically.
It's stupid because it's not a new supplier. They're the parent company of Reebok.
Well, not only that, but what would the reasoning be? Why, just because we're switching suppliers, do we have to change anything? I mean, why not just go, hey, what they've got works pretty darn good, except now we're going to put an Adidas logo on it instead of a Reebok logo, and everything will be just fine.
Because if you tell fans that this is a different jersey, they'll buy it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that's pretty much it.
I always forget that part, don't I?
Yeah. I think that's pretty much the only reason why they would be doing this.
Then again, I'm curious to see, particularly the Leafs and the Panthers, because they've recently, they're both in year 1 of new uniform designs, and it kind of reminds me of when the Ducks and the Sabres switched to new uniforms 1 year before the Edge switch over, and they just ended up keeping those designs intact.
Right. Well, again, I think I know for a fact that the Sabres were designing these things ahead of time, so that they would work on the Edge. I don't know if the Ducks thought about it that way, because clearly they didn't, or else the stripe would have stopped halfway around the fucking waist. But again, that was different because you're going from the big baggy CCM jerseys that we all grew up with to slimmed down versions of them that new materials and all that, and so that was a completely different changeover. This is the change on this now is going to be marginal, or at least we think. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
Well,
and the other thing that sucks is that when it comes to no alternates, like you, Mike, as a Maple Leafs fan, next year's the 100th Maple Leaf season, right? Everyone was getting excited for all the alternates that you guys were going to be wearing.
Yeah.
What about that?
Oh, I didn't even think of that. So they just kind of screwed you guys out of a whole bit, didn't they?
I I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's going to be an exception because that's like not so much. That's more of an anniversary. Like, I honestly don't know. So, I was looking forward to my St. Pat's and Arenas throwbacks. I can tell you that much.
Maybe
I don't know if that's gonna.
I could see where they could still do throwbacks and special one-off jerseys for the teams, but I guess maybe the issue would be you couldn't sell them to the fans.
Well, there is kind of a precedent for that too, because that first year with the Edge was also the first Winter Classic, so we did get the throwbacks for Buffalo and Pittsburgh that year.
I just got to go back to the same thing, though. I don't know what would make this more difficult. It's either because, like you said, they don't want to make fans have to buy like 3 or 4 new jerseys in a year. But other than that, it makes no sense whatsoever. Because if you knew the takeover, it wasn't like this was like they called up Adidas yesterday and said, "Hey, you're going to do the jerseys next year." And like, "Oh shit, okay, we better get right on this." I mean, I got to think they've been working on this for a while, right?
You would think.
And then when you take into account the fact that they're part of the same company, I don't know how hard this can really be. If you knew, I don't know. It just makes no sense to me. But we are going to get some teams are changing up, though, right? They're going to go to they're promoting alternates to the primaries.
The Edmonton Oilers are going to be replacing their blue home sweaters with their orange alts. The orange alts will be their primary home sweaters going forward.
I don't like that a bit. Don't like it a bit. Do not like it.
Yeah, the classic blues going away is kind of terrible.
Well, I mean that's the uniform of Gretzky, right? I mean that blue uniform is synonymous with some of the best hockey teams ever assembled.
Unless they want to bring in the Connor McDavid era with these new jerseys or something, I don't know.
That's been the argument I've seen people make, not from the Oilers themselves, but I've seen people say that, the blue has been associated with too much losing as of late, and now that they're finally starting to get good again, they can make like orange the color of the McDavid era, all that kind of thing.
I hate that line of thinking that this is the one that they won with, all that. Come on. The Yankees won a bunch and lost a bunch in the same uniform. None of that makes sense. The Canadiens, come on. I hate that.
This is the same team that went with their terrible Edge jerseys and thought that they were a good idea because they thought they looked like Baltimore Ravens uniforms. So,
But yeah, so we got that. Anybody else, or is it just Edmonton that's doing the alt to primary?
Well, that's I'm sure there's going to be more, but that's the one that or at least Chris Creamer has said for sure is going to be the thing. We think that the Capitals could be going full retro, right?
I'm cool with that.
And then it's rumored that the Devils are going to be doing some sort of overhaul to their jerseys, which also is equally as blasphemous as the Oilers thing because the Devils have looked like the Devils forever. Like, there's no reason to change what they look like.
Well, Mike and I talked about it before we signed on that we would be okay with them going back to the green.
I would be okay with I would be okay if they went with the green throwbacks full time, but this I don't okay. Here's what I predict they're going to go with. I think they're going to add green to the color scheme, but not get. I think they're going to attempt to do one of those things where they blend all the eras and it just ends up looking terrible. So I see them adding green to the red and black, and I see them replacing the Devils logo, which is one of the best in the league in my opinion, with a. I don't want to say cartoony devil, but with something that
a Brandio style devil, a character,
a Brandio style mascot logo, essentially. Yes,
God.
That's what I think will happen.
How many cups have they won in New Jersey? 2, 3,
3.
Okay, I hate this argument, but I'm going to say, you know what? They're the Devils. You got it. It's hard to say that they're like an iconic team, but they are. Huh?
It's not even that those are the jerseys that they won in, because even when they were red and black, or red and green, excuse me, that was still their logo. Their logo It's one of the perfect logos in all sports. It's an N, it's a J, it's a devil. What else the hell do you want?
I know, I agree. And again, you wouldn't think of them as being like having an iconic look, but they do. I mean, you always think of like the Canadians, Leafs, the original six guys basically. But this is a team that, I don't know how you improve on that look. I don't know what you would do to it where you think, okay, this is better than what we had before.
Well,
that's what it is me.
From what I recall, the Devils specifically stated on many occasions that they wanted to base sort of the culture of their team off of the same mentality that the original six teams had. And, like, we want to strive to that level. And that's why they kept their look, except for a very minor redesign. They kept their look consistent. They kept their logo, like, completely unchanged except for a color swap. And they were more or less like they took a very no-nonsense approach. Like, well, the Canadians don't switch their uniforms up every couple of years. They have a very simple look. Well, here's our simple look, and we're going to stick with that. And I think that's a very refreshing attitude to see amongst a team that's not a really traditional franchise.
No, but you know what? They're not, but they kind of are in a way because of that, because they did that. They said, here's our brand, and we're sticking with it. And now, I don't know how they've been around since, the WHA merger, right? Is that where who were they before?
They were the Colorado Rockies.
Okay.
And before that, they were the Kansas City Scouts.
Right, but from the inception in New Jersey, it's been basically the same look.
Yes.
So
correct.
Why mess with that? And again, what's the reasoning for it? Why would you look at that and go, we need to change this? That would be like the Rangers going, you know what? Those shields that we wore back in the 70s, we need to bring those back because that was cool. No, you don't do that. It drives me nuts. No. It drives me absolutely nuts.
And I think part of the reason and why it's being speculated they might be doing it now, through all those years, the Devils weren't changing. The constant was Lou Lamoriello. And he went out of his way to make sure that the Devils didn't change. They never had any alternates. When they went to the Stadium Series, everyone else got those futuristic chrome-looking jerseys that year. And he was like, no, we're just going to wear a throwback. If we had to wear something different, we're just going to wear the red and green ones because screw you, NHL. And now that there's these new owners who are the owners of the Sixers, there's some thought that, new culture, and they are doing some new things here and there, but like that with these new owners, they want to kind of change the team a little bit more to suit them rather than being this old, stodgy, traditional guy like Lou. They want to be the new hotness and,
I guess, though, if they're the owners of the Sixers, you can have a little hope because the Sixers, while having newer uniforms, are still very traditional looking. They didn't come out and do anything nutty or anything like that, so that's kind of nice. I just think that there are very few teams that can establish a look where it's as recognizable and just, I hate to use the word iconic because that's just overstating it, but one that's so consistent, why you blow that is beyond me. My biggest fear is that we're going to get the grandiose New Jersey Devils, and that's going to be awful.
We're going to get the grandiose New Jersey Devils, and the color scheme will be red, black, and green, and it'll look muddy, and it'll look completely unappealing, and there will be some branding blurb about how it mixed the eras.
We're going to get Angry Devil with a hockey stick is what we're going to get. Okay, that's going to do it for us. You can follow us on Twitter at Basically Sports. Go to the website, basicallyasportshow.com. We're laughing because I took 3 tries at this before I finally got it right.
We're a professional program. Folks.
That's right. Stitcher, Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes. You can subscribe via all of those outlets, and you can find us on Facebook. A new episode of Basically a Football Show will be out tomorrow or sometime, too. And with that, I got nothing else.
I got nothing.
All right, so anyway, that's going to do it for us. We will see you next time, folks. Thanks for dropping by.
Later.
Yeah.